Okay, we're going to look at some more things that we need to add to our form. So I am still with HP 9-1, and I'm just going to separate some of the stuff here just so that it's a little more organized on our screen. So I'm just separating controls. So our text box control is here. Our checkbox control is going to be by itself, our radio button by itself, our password by itself, and then our text area by itself. Okay, so the reason that I'm doing this is because when I initially showed you this, I left out a step. We really should include labels for all of our controls. Now, this is for accessibility, and remember, we want our website to be as accessible as possible for those that have screen readers or other assistive technology that helps them use our website. So, technically, we are supposed to add labels to all of our controls. Now, there are two ways to do labels. I'm just going to show you the easiest way because it's easy. Okay, so basically you just encapsulate the whole control in a label tag. So before the email, we would have an open label tag. And of course, code automatically puts that closing label. So I'm going to drag that to just right before my breaks. My breaks are not part of this control. They're just here to help me display my content a little separate on the page. Okay, and that's all you do. You just a label on all of these before you even have text, because this text is associated with this control, and then we'll have it right here. Now, just the alternate way, so you know what the other way of doing a label looks like, you do label for and then the name of the control. So the name that I gave this control was feedback. And then you close the label before the control starts. Okay, so just the text that appears on the screen would be encapsulated with the label. But see, we have to do this extra step of adding the for. So I think this way is much easier. Now that doesn't change anything on our screen. If we refresh our document, it still looks exactly the same to us. This is just helpful for screen readers and other assistive technologies for people who use our website. Let's look at adding another control. So after our text area, I have a couple of breaks. And this time I'm going to include my label tag as I start. So I'm going to say label, and we're going to have a selection list. A selection list can be a drop-down list or just a list of options that the user can select from. So we're going to say we have a list of potential newsletters. So which newsletter would you like to subscribe to? To create a selection list, we use the tag select, and select needs the attribute size, which I'll set to 1. Let's always try to give it a name and an ID. Now, when you open a select tag, you get a closing select tag. And all of the options that we want the user to be able to select needs to be within these two tags. And every option will have its very own option tag. We'll set the value to what we want the newsletter to be. So let's say we have a newsletter called Pause. And then we close that option tag. So let's repeat this process so we have a couple of options to display to the user. Okay, I've added 3 more options for our selection list. A newsletter called Cats and Kittens, a newsletter called Caring for Rabbits, and a newsletter called Training Your Puppy. Okay, so let's add a couple of breaks. So we want this to be on its own line, so let's add a break there. And we want the selection list to have a couple of line breaks before our buttons, so I'll add a couple of breaks down there. All right, let's take a look in the browser, refresh, and now we have a selection list. So you've seen these before. You click the drop-down list and you have options that you can choose from, and those are the options that we coded. Now, you can change the size value. Let's look what happens when I change the size value to 4. If we change it to 4 and refresh the page, then it shows all of our options because we have 4 options. If we change to size, maybe to 2, if we change the size to 2, then it only displays 2 options, but we can scroll and see all of the other options. Now let's look at field sets and legends. Field sets allow us to create a thin bordered line around our controls. So to demonstrate this, I'm going to go right up to right below where my form starts, and I'm going to open a field set tag. Now the field set tag needs to, or the field set tag set needs to encapsulate all of the code that I want to appear in this border. So I am going to say I want all of my code. I'm going to go all the way to past my buttons. Okay? So I have my closing field set here and my opening field set here. Now all that's going to do is draw a line. If we refresh this, see how it put that border around there? We could move our closing field set, say I wanted it before my buttons, and refresh, and now it appears before the buttons. Okay, so that all of that field set is doing is drawing that line. And sometimes we may want some text to appear, and we do that with a legend. So if we said legend, complete this form, and we refresh, now we have that text here. Okay, so the code that did this was the legend tag set, and the code that made this line is the field set.